Welcome to the Last Rabbit podcast. And today we're here with co-hosts Jackie, Jeno, and Dan, the man. All right.
There
Man,
we go.
so California, man. LA, Hollywood. Shit, it's all lit up right now. It's all in a blaze. Uh I think we should start this conversation with basically let's call it the governor's investigation. So Governor Newsom He he's actually putting in an investigation to like what the fuck's going on with the water system, the misuse of management of fucking, you know, very important supplies. And they said like January 8th they had 117 million gallons like worth of water, and something happened to it where it just fucking by the time, it just ran out.
Um, I did see a podcast with Trump and Joe Rogan where he stated that there was like a redirection of water usage that could have been coming from the north, but for the preservation of a specific fish, they redirect that water straight into the ocean.
The smelt fish.
Yeah, there you go. And
Is that like, does that make sense? I'm not, this is a question. I'm curious. Does that make sense? Like what the
well,
hell? I've
well, I
never
know
heard
that
of
there
that.
could
This is
be.
California, my friend.
I know a lot of the risk of forest fire could be reduced with a lot of the water that could come from the north. There's a lot of water from Canada that could be, very much applied to these fires and be helpful, man. But obviously, it's really hard when you're dealing with wind fires. Most firefighters would say that wind fires are the hardest fires to deal with.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I
because
don't
even
know.
if you're throwing water on it, though it's not letting the water fall to the fire, the wind is just blowing it. And then also the embers, like
Correct.
fire is just flying everywhere to different spots of the areas, starting more fires.
If the question is like, do I think anything will happen to Gavin Newsom? No. The answer is no. I mean, he might get voted out of office. This might end his presidential like quest, and it's cold in the tracks. But like,
I mean, one
he
unique factor is for the first time, like this is something that's actually affecting the 1% in their households and their
Right.
possessions. So I think some people we know that obviously corporate interest is what moves politics, and a lot of these people are feeling the effects of this for once. So there may be some urgency to remove certain political players and certain things. I think because it affects them, certain things might change. If it was just kind of the middle class being affected or the lower class, I think we would see the same song and dance.
Oh, I think his political career is over. But I'm talking about like getting thrown in. I don't think he'll be thrown in jail. I don't think he'll be facing charges. Like, I think that's people have been like kind of trying to get to that level. And it's like that's not going to happen in California. Same with this Karen Bass. Like Karen Bass was out in Ghana, when this was all happening, and she comes back crazy. She was on the VP shortlist for Kamala Harris. I can't even. You talk about the greatest bullet dodge of all time is like that Trump's coming back in personally, but can you believe like Karen Bass and Kamala Harris as president, vice president, or it was Tim Walz who's just as bad, but wow, really dodged the bullet, America.
Now these fires are in
The Palisades?
Mhm.
Palisades. Uh it's in a couple other spots, but
Oh,
it looks to be around LA, like surrounding it. I
yeah,
see a
you
lot
got
of
the Eden
famous.
fire, you got the Kenneth fire, and there's not a lot of containment on many of these. I think the wind was supposed to die down in the next couple of days, so that was supposed to help their cause.
Mhm.
It's not
But
fire season out there though. It's not supposed to be like that bad.
well, a lot of this was arson, I believe. I don't think
See,
this was.
that's a
This,
good point.
people thinking this is climate change is a little, I think, a little crazy to me. But this was combination of arson plus mismanagement.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause
Yeah, they
they've
say that a lot of the fires that have been going on the past like years have been more towards urban fires and not like due to the climate and stuff like that.
they arrested at least one person, starting fires.
Probably
Facts.
let them go already, knowing
Yeah.
California. But that's what I'm saying. Probably didn't have enough
So
evidence
they're
on it.
setting a curfew now out there too, and I feel like, well, that's dangerous. It's like shit. And they're like it could be. I'm not sure if they said it was a misdemeanor,
Yeah, they said that.
but it's just adding on to the like, it's like, dude, like the city's burning down. You trying to do curfews.
And they said like you're not gonna be able to just like get locked up and then like like bailed out and released and stuff. Like they're gonna have to actually sit there and wait.
Isn't it crazy how like some people there like are not affected and they're just like, oh yeah, this is like they're going to lunch and like continuing like their normal day, and it's like, oh, you can see the smoke from over there. Like it's bizarre.
Mm,
I think
they
that's
still
it.
gotta live their. I mean, there's so much stuff that happens around us that we still continue our day. I mean, this is a really big, devastating thing that's going on. But like, if you think about it, like we live our daily life every day, and there's so much stuff going on around us that we just look at and we're like, wow, like, that's happening. But I mean, we still have to do what we have to do.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, with Jackie saying, I mean, like you think about there's like constant bombing in the Middle East, there's crazy dictatorship in North Korea, but like these things seem so far fetched. But I think even something like COVID that was happening right in front of us,
Mhm.
still like people are just in their bubble, man. Like spectating one thing and experiencing it is another. So like
Right.
it's not important until it's happening to you, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it's more of an individualism and every man for themselves kind of mentality right now.
Mhm.
Is like I think you saw with in New York when that woman got lit on fire, or when that homeless person got lit on fire, and literally people just took out videos and just recorded it and nobody helped her. Like I think you're kind of just seeing like it's every man for themselves. I always recommended like people to get out of cities like years ago. It was like cities are cities are a death trap right now. It's better to be out, away from the cities. And I don't know. I think it's the reckoning is coming. Is I think a lot of liberal policies, like I think you saw a culmination of this in California, is a lot of little liberal things that cause this like tremendous disaster, from cutting fire budget to just like general, DEI, to not clearing the brush away because of climate change, even though clearing the brush away would probably be better for not starting fires. I think you saw a lot. I think what you're seeing in 2025 is the death of a lot of what's been going on in this country. And I think this is
Mhm.
kind of almost like, in a way, like almost California being set on fire is like almost like you is like as a representation of it in a way.
Mhm.
Is we're done with this old way.
Yeah, but
And
you would
we're
think that like even like after like fires that happened in the past, like even Chicago, there was the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, and that one killed 300 people and it destroyed. It was like 17,000 structures, and then it was like more than 100,000 residents left homeless. Like you would think, as smart as like human beings are, like we would prepare for these kind of things instead of just sit there and let things like continue to be the same way. I mean, we have plenty of resources. Just like there was that one house, I don't know if anybody's seen that. It was like the only house standing, like in between the burnt down houses, because they built it like with some like brick. It was
Was
like
it
fire
was it
resistance.
was it blue?
No, it wasn't blue.
Like limestone.
No, they didn't exactly say the name of it, but they said it was brick. it was like a fire resistance that they did, and it was like they made it also a certain way where the air flows through a certain way through the house, and they didn't use the kind of windows like that we use, the glass windows.
Right.
So yeah, so like things like that, like everybody should be aware of these things, that we have these materials to use, in cities like that, so that you are safe and stuff. But
we don't have those materials. That's for like the rich.
yeah, but we
That's-
do. They just don't like give you the resources.
Yeah, got to get it
Yes.
through like China. What's that app, Josh?
Oh, Timu.
Yeah.
Timu,
Yeah.
Sheen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Resources mismanaged. Investigations happening. President, like I haven't heard anything.
AWOL.
Yeah, it's like
All he's doing is making jokes.
yeah.
Like,
What, Ukraine? Give more money to Ukraine? Is okay?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
I mean, I hope this is like what I mean, I don't know if you guys heard Adam Carolla the other day, but he was talking about how a lot of these people that had their houses burned down in the next like 3 to 5 years will flip to like becoming Republicans because they're gonna have to deal with like these permits and this bureaucracy in California that people that have their houses burned down, like at best, they're not going to have lumber to rebuild their houses for like until like 3 years from now, like
Mhm.
with all the permits and all the government and all the bureaucracy. And then they think like that will radicalize people in California. Is that it's a
So
pain in the ass to try to build something in that city. I think what's his name, Bill Maher. It took him like 3 years to build a solar little shed for himself, and I think he talked about that because of all the permit process and the government. So I think a lot of people are gonna have a great awakening in there in the next 3 years of like how their government works and how it actually functions. Like, 'cause they have never really maybe had to deal with it so much.
and then we got like Mexico and stuff came down to help out too. They're fire disaster people. And then we got
I mean, they're like, shit, this is our land.
Right?
Yeah.
For real. That's
Like,
what I was
technically, if
thinking.
we're being technical,
well, I mean
No,
even
conquered.
yeah,
I don't buy into any of that, but sorry.
Biden sending aid down there from like other states for like their fire department people.
I believe that they send, I could be saying it wrong, but FEMA? Is that what they sent?
Well,
They said,
that's one of the organizations.
yeah, but they specifically go in there for like search and rescue and like, clearing debris and shit like that, I believe. But yeah, I mean, it is sad to see, man. Prayers to all
It's
the
sad to
families,
see that it's
all the
had to
people.
come to that point. Like we should have been able to. We should have the money in this country to deal with these problems, but it's really not been happening. Like
Yeah,
I was like I feel like we've just been hollowed out in the last like 20 years. Like this country has like been hollowed out from the inside, and there's really like the money. The like I always tell people like what would 2 trillion in this country do that we spent in Iraq? $2-3 trillion. What would $3 trillion that we spent in this country instead of shipping it to bomb Iraq would have done? What would all these hundreds of billions of dollars done for this country? They had to cut the fire service by 17-18 million dollars. Like California, like that's crazy. We shouldn't have to cut any fire service in this. Like I
Yeah.
don't know. I think I'm getting to a point. I don't know where like
And
it
and
shouldn't
then
be happening.
yeah, and then you could mention like 3 months before this, the insurance companies, they started denying, people eligibility for these fucking
Well,
Fires.
they did that because Newsom put a cap. So like Newsom wants to blame the insurance companies, but Newsom put a cap on the insurance companies. So like the insurance companies couldn't raise rates on these people when they knew that Newsom wasn't dealing with like with raking of the forest and shit like that, like fire preventative measures. So like they just pulled out because like they saw what, like they knew what was going to happen before like the governor of California did. You know,
But that
that's why
should
they
be
did.
illegal. Like they shouldn't be able to, and like maybe he
Well,
shouldn't be able to do what he's doing. I don't know, but like that's
I mean, if State Farm or whoever is a company, they got to make money. Like I don't know, John. What John would argue to me with this to the death, but you know, these companies do have to make money. And if the governor is capping how much you can charge for insurance rates for these hundreds of millions of dollars of buildings that are you think could go up in flames in a couple months, like it makes sense that they would pull out instead of obviously they made the right decision. You can't like in retrospect, all those insurance companies were way ahead of the game because they knew what was going to happen. So that's why they pulled out because they knew that there was going to be a big fire coming. And now all those people are relying on like there's like this California insurance that's like completely underfunded to cover all these expenses. It's like, how is that going to get bailed out? It's going to get bailed out by everyone in the country. Is like, and you already saw Biden announce they didn't do it for North Carolina or Hawaii or East Palestine, Ohio, that like Biden wasn't going to cover any of their expenses, but for California, he's going to cover 100% of the expenses, and he already announced that. And which means that we're all going to cover it as we're going to cover the incompetence of Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass and the state of California and the billions of dollars that those incompetent dumbasses have cost this entire country, and we're going to bail them out. And it just fucking pisses me off personally.
I mean, it could very well be an empty promise from him. He's on the way out, you know, like to say that he can, you know, get behind enough legislation to get something done. You know, it might be something where he's saying it on the way out. Trump comes in and Trump's like, yeah, we're not doing that. You know, like we're going to take this approach. But
hopefully,
yeah, I mean, you know, I do think that I think a lot of this is a reflection of Congress. I know we blame the governor, we blame the mayor, this and that, but like we need young-minded people who are not rooted in their corporate interests to come in with fresh ideas, see where the world is going. And I think there's too much reflection on where the world has been. And obviously, we're watching everything change in front of us. You know, like gatekeeping is going out the window now. So we need a new approach. As you said, we're walking at a time of individuality. And I think that the world should start, America should start being acknowledged as that. I mean, America's for sale. That's just what it is. You know, so like the more outside entities and individuals are invested here, the less inclined it is for us as individuals. You know, so we have to start changing the narrative of where we think is, you know, the trendy place to live or regions. Like we have to see where the real risk is. You know, people are kind of blinded by the light. You know, so California has that you know, that view of
the
Hollywood
nice
or
weather.
success. I'm sorry.
The nice weather.
Yeah, well, that too. But I mean, there's nice weather in other places too. You know, but I mean, there's still risk. Like, would you rather be at the risk of a California fire or a Florida hurricane? You know, you kind of got to pick your battles, pick your poison.
I'll take Ron DeSantis any day over Gavin Newsom.
Ours are tornadoes.
Any day and twice on Sunday, I would take Ron DeSantis any day.
yeah, we do the tornado thing out here in Missouri. Missouri.
We
Tornado
went to
weather.
like the safe shelters probably about 3 times.
Yeah, it was
last year.
a gym, like a elementary school. I was like, this is not gonna fucking save us. You know, like you did the math. I'm like, this is a gym. I'm like, ooh.
I don't know about you two, but are you guys entertaining any conspiracies about this?
So what about them trying to like make LA into the government is trying to make it into a, what was it called?
Smart
A smart city.
Smart city.
So that's why the fires like happen, like they burn down to
Yeah,
rebuild.
burned it down, got no insurance. But this is
They
all
said it's
just
kind of like Maui, where it's like prime real estate,
that's what
and
I'm
then you burn
talking
it
about.
down and you make it a pain in the ass to like rebuild. So they sell, and they're
Yep.
going to sell to it's these insurance, you know, it's these private equity firms, BlackRock,
I mean, this happened in Puerto Rico, but obviously due to flooding and whatnot. But during Trump's first presidency, a lot of the insurance companies were kind of pulling back, and people were being forced. Like Puerto Rico is a little different because they don't. I don't believe they have property tax and certain things. But like people who had their land for generations were being forced out, and like very little compensation to run to Orlando or run to here or run there, and it was rough.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like we've seen this scenario happen where prime real estate is being. I'm saying it's not nothing new. It's not nothing new to see. You can see the trend of it of what's to occur.
It's sad. It's very sad to watch all these fires and people like crying. And they're losing their houses. A lot of these people that lost their houses have had these houses for many of years. They have memories there. They grew up there. Their mom and dad lived there. They're. I seen one story where it was a 90-year-old, like 90 and 91, I believe. The mother and father, they lived there, and the daughter was there, and she was like still there because she was so mad because of course the insurances dropped the fire protection. So she was like she's wanting to save it, but I mean, she eventually had to leave because there's nothing that she can do to save it. But she was really upset, like now they have to lose everything that they have. It's very sad.
I think it is very crazy. Like it's one thing to like deny, let's just say like for a new purchase, deny fire insurance, but it's crazy to drop someone's insurance.
Yeah.
Like now that's very questionable. If a person has a high risk property, especially something that's like 30 million, 20 million, shit, even $1 million, you know what I mean? And it's like, hey, we're no longer offering this type of insurance. It's very crazy, I mean, it's a high risk area.
They were right. You can't say they
I
were
can understand saying like,
wrong.
hey, we don't offer flooding insurance in Nevada, or some shit like that. But like, it's crazy shit.
Because they actually have to put in, like, insurance companies actually have to put in like boots on the ground, and they actually have to do the fucking work that the government won't do. And that's why they fucking knew that like this shit was a really huge risk, and that's why they pulled out. Like, because they knew shit that the state of California didn't know, you know, and that's what, like, because their
They
money
should
is
be
on the
fucking
line. Like, that's
hung.
the
We
problem
should
with
fucking
government.
they should fucking hang their ass, I guess, now. For this
Problem with
shit.
the problem with government is they never have anything on the line. They don't. Government doesn't make any money. Government doesn't generate profit. Government doesn't, have to meet standards. They just have to, they're a necessary. Like, that's why people like say they're a necessary evil. Like, I would say that personally, but like, that's
And
why. It's because, like,
Yeah. But I understand like where Josh is coming from, because if you put it into perspective where say if it's like health, right? And like my daughter has diabetes, and say if they're like the insurances are like, well, there's too many people that are getting diabetes now, we're gonna just drop that and we're never gonna cover it again. And it's like, well, that's wrong. Like, I don't know. I don't see it as like it's right to
yeah,
just
it's just
do that.
business. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just business.
Yeah,
It's not.
I guess because excuse me, the premise of insurance is personal interest, right? But it's pitched in a business aspect. So like,
Yeah.
you think of insurance, you think of what's your personal interest, but when it's being leveraged as business, same thing with medical. It's very
Yeah.
evil. It's an evil thing, like
Yeah.
Doctors need to be paid by the same way we pay the police officers. It should
or 100%. And I also think that insurance, schooling, medical, all these things should be regulated in the same form. Like they shouldn't be able to be just for profit. But obviously, we understand why that is. You
well,
understand?
that's dangerous.
100%. I mean, obviously, now we're playing with the idea of capitalism and leaning into communism, supposedly, but it's
not.
still like
But it's not. And it's
We're
not
playing with
dangerous. It's
incentive.
not.
We're playing,
No.
well,
We're
I
playing
like
with
to shit on American
kindness.
healthcare all day long, but whenever somebody needs something fucking done, they come here to get it done. Like, that's
100%.
facts. Whenever somebody needs something really done and they have money, they come here and get it done. They don't go to fucking Canada. They don't go to fucking Great Britain. They don't go to fucking Germany. They come to America because we have the best doctors. We have the best doctors because we pay the best doctors. Like, so, and you start capping that shit. Like, that's I get what you're saying, but like, that's the the tilt of the
Yeah.
you want to start
No,
limiting that
that
shit.
should be
Okay,
that
then
should be
like the
through the
doctors might
government
go
though.
somewhere else, and then
But it should go through the government still. Like the
No,
government
hell no.
is still covering that bill.
I think we should. Oh yes. So
If
I
even
just
if they get paid a lot, it's like the government got you. Like you're a good fucking doctor, and we have the best. Come on through. Just like we would take the best scientists, and put them in places and shit. It's like we have the best doctors. Like you came to the right place. You're gonna live. And why not?
I just wonder
Yeah.
what is the harm of
Yeah.
the richest nation in the world to
Be the best.
just go just give it a beta run of 4 years of universal health care, universal schooling, and just see what happens to the crime rate, see what happens to the deficits and certain things. But I understand that because
Well,
America.
see, they would
it would
have to
bankrupt us.
enforce
We
the.
can't do that with our immigration policy.
No,
There's no freaking
no,
way we could do that with our
100%.
immigration policy
I agree.
currently as it is.
I think
I,
they would have to
I
change,
do
like
think I do
enforce
think that
the
we have to break
diet. They would have to enforce diet and like the things that they could put into food, like in the processed foods, and like just like Germany or somewhere, they don't put the same stuff. And
Yeah.
if the government had to pay for the bill of everything, then they would start holding people accountable. And
But
they'd be
that's
like,
okay, because that might have like the health might change because we have Kennedy now with Trump
yeah,
coming through.
Yeah, but it's only a potential 4-year run. I mean, the thing is too is that Dan makes a good point. Like, for example, Russia implements a lot of those things. They're very much against GMOs and other stuff. But who the fuck is crossing the border trying to run into Russia, right?
we
No,
said Germany.
no, I know, but I'm just using an example. What I'm saying is that Russia is a country that very much regulates a lot of things. Where it's saying it's a self-sufficient economy. It it's very adamant about healthy foods intake and certain things, but they don't deal with the immigration crisis in the same fashion that America does. Everybody wants to run to America. So because of that, right, America is this influx that keeps giving out, giving out, giving out. And as the fucking table gets fuller, the slices get smaller. So the only way to implement all these ideas that we're all sharing is to have a secure border situation where
Yeah,
no one gets
absolutely.
in, and these resources pour within. Or maybe, but the thing is because America feels that the threat is outward, or believes that the risk of something outward is more potentially dangerous than what can come from inward, we're constantly trying to pour this influx out to take more control and have more territories for the risk of other countries. And it just seems so fucking counterproductive for the people, that is, But for corporate interests, it just serves so well. So,
Yeah.
America is a corporation. America loves its children, but it at the cost of its people.
I miss people.
Yeah.
Yeah. America. Do
Are you
better,
good?
America.
I think I got to get going here.
Oh yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Looks like LA stuff's burnt up. I guess we're gonna wrap this one up. How long did we do it for?
Almost an hour.
Oh shit. That shit flew by.
Man.
All right, guys, it's been fucking great.
Yeah.
Good.
Prayers to LA and everybody that needs to evacuate. You need to evacuate. Don't stay there.